What are you putting off out of fear? What is it costing you? What is that fear costing you, Ben? Financially, emotionally, and physically to postpone action? And what are you waiting for? Ben, I think you need to answer these questions. This book is cracking. Like, you need to read it again and again every month and implement one thing from it, and your life will improve substantially.
I just messaged my sister by the book. Welcome back to another episode of the Ben and Bergs podcast. I'm Ben, your favorite high school dropout and founder of Collective Shift. Alongside me is Bergs, your favorite MBA and COO of Collective Shift, Australia's leading crypto portfolio insights company, providing professional analysis and portfolio strategies for crypto investors like you. We're a unique blend of the established and the self-made, and we're here to break down crypto, business, and personal growth. But we're not just talking theory, we're giving you the insights you need to make better investments, build successful businesses, and level up your life. And today we've got one that's certainly going to level up your life across your personal, business, career, professional, with our top 10 must-read books before you die. Bergs, how are you, man?
I'm really well, man. I'm excited to do this episode. This is a cracking one. I've seen Ben's list of books. I've read a couple of them, mate. They are cracking. And we're not just like, hey, you need to read these books because we're smart and we read books. No, we've read these. We've reread them. We're going to tell you the lessons that we learned and how it changed our life. And if you're looking for the same thing, do yourself a favor, read these books, get the lessons that we've learned and change your life.
And Bergs reads a lot more than me, team. So it's like my list here it's a very short list because I don't read many books. When I read a book, like, I very rarely get to the end. It has to be really fucking good to get to the end. So yeah, I'm really pumped to walk through this today. So number one, it's probably my favorite book of recent times, one I recently finished, which was recommended to me by a business owner friend. It is called Way of the Peaceful Warrior, a book that changes lives, by Dan Millman. And it's about a story of just a younger guy who's going through life that meets an older gentleman who is a bit of a warrior. It really sort of shows him through life, and really this idea about discipline and, not being a slave to impulses and life. And really talking about how life, life's purpose and being in the moment and not thinking about the future, and has some really amazing quotes like, it's better to make a mistake with the full force of your being than to timidly avoid mistakes with a trembling spirit. Or, just little things like overcome your ego and face your fears. Be disciplined. It attracts a new energy. Don't be a slave to random impulses. A warrior doesn't seek pain, but if it comes, he uses it. Like, these sorts of things. Like, and for me, like, in my mind, I just think about when life's hard, when I've got a day that I'm not enjoying, when I don't want to do something, when I don't want to get up and go to the gym every morning. I'm like, be a fucking warrior. Don't be soft. Be a warrior. Get up and do it, and don't complain. Just get after it. And that sits in my mind. And that was a really cool little book.
Do you know, I've actually started doing that without reading this book since I've just come back, like last week from holiday, where I was somehow seeking a life of comfort. And I'm like, no, I don't want less stress. I want more stress. I want to be able to handle it. And it brings me back to the quote where, don't pray for an easy life, pray for the strength to endure a difficult one. And that's the person that you want to become. You want to be the warrior.
I like that. Right, that's number one. What do you got for us, Bergs?
All right. This is a book that I read a very, very long time ago. And this is the one that pretty much set me on my path to investing and getting my finances right. And I read this probably when I was 17 or 18, I think. Yeah, that'd be right. So this one, here we go. I've got it here. It's called Making Money by Paul Clitheroe. It's an Australian book. Paul Clitheroe, Aussie bloke. He used to run a TV program called Money back in the day. And they had Money Magazine where they'd have like share tips and they'd teach you about everything. And just flicking through it now, well, the reason I like this book is because if you're starting out or need a reminder, it teaches you about wealth, how to structure it, how to think about money, how to save, how to invest, how to make more money. And flicking through the chapters, it's got owning a home, mortgages, insurance, superannuation, getting the max from tax, 10 keys to successful investing, investing in property, investing in shares, managed funds, your own business, retirement, estate planning, and a chapter on if things go wrong. It is literally the life. Shit, I'm going to read this again. This is really good. And just when you open the book, 10 steps to financial security. I'll read them out now. Step 1, have a plan. And he goes through like what to do when you're young, what to do if you're halfway through, what to do if you're older or married with children. Then it goes on to step 2, budget and take control of your money. And it's got key thoughts on there. And it's really, really simple. Step 3, save little, save often. Step 4, avoid punting and silly risks. Man, this is such good advice. Step 5, don't plan to save cash. His big key is don't put your money in the bank, buy the bank. Step 6, plan to own your home debt-free. Step 7, super is good. Invest in it. Step 8, minimize tax. Absolutely. If you don't, you've got rocks in your head. Good old Kerry Packer said that. What a legend. Step 9, protect your assets. And step 10, take advice if you need it. And really what you're doing here is you're forming a team and you're becoming well-rounded. Lots of people will say they're looking out for you and to buy something or sell something, but how do you structure it? What does the team look like? How do you pass down your wealth? How do you minimize your tax? This is an absolutely cracking book to read. Came out in 1995, has got quite a few revisions since then. Paul Clitheroe, Making Money.
I'm a man. A lot of fundamentals there that you talk about, so I think that's actually had a pretty big impact on you.
Absolutely.
Right, next one for me, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And this one's an absolute cracker, right? And specifically the four cash flow quadrants. This was like a game changer for me. Like when I read this, I was like, oh my goodness, it all makes sense. And you realize how life is just ridiculous. So you've got 4 different areas of the quadrants of wealth, or the cash flow quadrants. You've got E for employee, you've got S for self-employed or specialist, and then on the other side, you've got B for business, or I for investor. So on the left-hand side, the quadrants are E and S, the employee and self-employed. They pay the most in taxes and trade their time for money. And I read that, I was like, that sounds shit. I'm like, what? On the right-hand side, you've got the quadrant of the B's and the I's. Business and investor. They pay the least in taxes and create and invest in assets that produce cash flow for them even when they're sleeping. And I was like, oh my goodness, I need to be on the right-hand side. I don't want to be on the left-hand side. You know, on the right-hand side, those who own businesses who invest are becoming richer and richer. On the left-hand side, people are holding on for the economy to pick up. And if they do, that demands people's time. Employment goes up and then they're still paying high in taxes and are under the mercy of their employees and the economy. Until then, they will struggle because they'll have nothing else to offer and no other way to make money. Employees and self-employed always do badly in a down economy. I'm like, oh my goodness. Now, easy said than done to just roll over the right-hand side. It is very difficult to get on the right-hand side and actually succeed. And, you know, I'm in that process at the moment. Definitely not, shouting from the rooftops. But that idea just made it so clear. Like, where do you sit? Where do you want to sit? And if you're not sitting in the right spot, can move on and start figuring out how you get in the right spot. So that was a really cool, eye-opening game, life-changing book I read.
That's one that changed for me, but it's a good mindset book, but for me, it wasn't prescriptive enough on what to actually do. But it says, like, here's the path. Which one do you want? The path is very clear. Like, people know how to make money. People know how to get big in the gym, but you got to put the effort in. And I love that book because the first thing I was like, I can make money while I sleep? What? Like, so I read that before Paul Clitheroe's book. And I love one of the quotes in the book where he said, there's people that make things happen, those that watch things happen, and those that say, what happened? Which do you want to be?
I like that.
He's a legend. That's why it's an older book and it's still on the bestsellers list because it is that good.
Amazing. Right, that's the number 3. What's up going in at number 4?
All right. 4-Hour Workweek by Timothy Ferriss. Absolutely cracking book. And some of the stuff in it is a bit dated because it was written in or was released in 2007. And some of the stuff he talks about, like especially like technology, but you can easily apply it in your mind to what's happening today. And the reason that this blew my mind was because it's a pretty extreme book. Like working 4 hours, you're like, yeah, whatever, it's just a catchy title. No, he actually does it. But what he does is he gets you to answer tough questions about your life and what you're doing now as you go through the book. Even in the first chapter, he goes through and it's like D is for definition. And he wants you to go through and answer these questions. And a Mark Twain quote, I'm an old man, I have known a great many troubles, but most of them never happened. So this is the jump from maybe a job to another job or a new career or entrepreneurship. Look at these questions, Ben. Listen to this. There's 7 questions here. Number 1, define your nightmare. the absolute worst that could happen if you did what you are considering. And then he explains like how to do that. What steps could you take to repair the damage or get these things back on the upswing, even if temporarily? What are the outcomes or benefits, both temporary and permanent, of more probable scenarios? If you were fired from your job today, what would you do to get things under financial control? What are you putting off out of fear? What is it costing you? What is that fear costing you, Ben? Financially, emotionally, and physically, to postpone action? And what are you waiting for? And it is like, holy crap. Oh, mate. And then he goes through, look at these questions. If you had a heart attack and had to work 2 hours per day, what would you do? If you had a second heart attack and had to work 2 hours per week, what would you do? If you had a gun to your head and had to stop doing 4/5 of different time-consuming activities, what would you remove? And then what are the top 3 activities that I use to fill time to feel as though I've been productive? Ben, I think you need to answer these questions. Just looking at these, mate. What are the 20% of people who produce 80% of your enjoyment and propel you forward? And which 20% cause 80% of your depression, anger, and second guessing? It is like, holy crap. And the final thing in this book, by the way, the whole Tim Ferriss series with the 4-Hour Body, Tools of Titans, Tribe of Mentors, get them all. They're amazing. This is a little flow chart about delegation. So Ben, I'm going to send this to you as well. It starts off at the top, presented with an activity, and you ask yourself a question: will I enjoy this? If you enjoy it, great, put it into your calendar or action list. No, you don't enjoy it. If you don't enjoy it, is it income generating? If it is, can it be outsourced? Outsource it. If not, you got to do it. If it's income generating and it's no, is it an obligation? If it's yes, then outsource it. If no, eliminate it. This book is cracking. Like, you need to read it again and again every month and implement one thing from it, and your life will improve substantially.
I just messaged my assistant to buy the book.
Absolutely, mate. Within the first 20 pages, you'll be answering hard questions. This is the book, and why it's important to me, that actually helped me leave my job in health and come and work at Collective Shift.
Amazing. Brilliant, mate. Cracking book. I need to get that. That poses some serious questions that you need to consider.
Oh, 100%. And he doesn't muck around. His whole thing is life punishes the vague wish and rewards the specific ask. He gets right to the beans, asks you that difficult question, gets you to answer it, and you're like, actually, it's not that difficult. I just had a bit of fear, but even if it all goes wrong, it's still going to be okay.
Amazing. Amazing. Right. Next one. This is a business book that really helped me get Collective Shift off the ground, and it's called 0 to 1. Cracking book. Really sort of like, put things in perspective on building a startup. 0 to 1, Peter Thiel. Peter Thiel is just a weapon, mate. Like, he's
an animal.
Mate, just an absolute animal. So here was like a few sort of takeaways. There is no formula. The paradox of teaching entrepreneurship is that such a formula cannot exist because every innovation is new and unique. No authority can prescribe in concrete terms how to be more innovative. I can't say that. Innovative. Indeed, the single most powerful pattern I've noticed is that successful people find value in unexpected places. They do this by thinking about business from first principles instead of formulas. Wow. It's just like...
Yeah.
And the other one was around the contrarian question. So the question, what important truth do very few people agree with you on? Is hard to answer at first. It's better to start with what does everybody agree on? So this is the idea of getting stuck and just pushing forward. So like making incremental advances, stay lean and flexible, improve on the competition, focus on product, not sales. Like it's all about the idea of just getting out and iterating. And I remember, Bergs, when we first launched Collective Shift, you were an advisor with us at that point, and we were umming and ahhing about launching the product. Like, it was basically had fucking 3 wheels on it. It didn't really work. We're like, man, I don't know, it's not ready yet. And it took us about a year to build. And I remember having a phone call with you and like, Bergs, this is where we're at, man. I think it's ready, but it's not. It's got so much more to go. And I remember you just saying, Ben, it's fine. No one cares. Get it out there. get feedback. You're not going to know what's good and what's bad about it until you get real customer feedback. Don't be a dick. Just fucking launch it, see what happens. I'm like, you're so right. We launched it. And that night, I remember we had like 12 or 13 sales. That night, I was like, oh my God, thank you. Let's go. And then we had all that feedback and we started building for customers. So like not being perfect and just getting out and iterating. And that's a core value of our company to sort of this point.
Absolutely. I remember that phone call because I was going on a walk and I was eating an apple at the same time. And it was you and another advisor on the phone and me. And you guys were building the product. I was helping out here and there. And I was like, you know, one of you blokes was talking about, oh, we're doing this. So I'll let you talk for 5 minutes, got halfway around the block. And I'm like, just launch it. Like, what are you doing? I'm like, people guess, markets decide. Throw it out there. You've literally got one low price product. Then you got 2 higher ones. Throw it out. If it works, fantastic. If it doesn't, iterate on it. You're not going to be able to work it out yourself because it's not your mind. You're not going into your own wallet. Other people are. And you launched it. It was great. You got signups. You're like, holy crap, this actually worked. And then you just iterated from there. And we just dropped another podcast on creating your strategy. And within that, we kept going. We keep iterating and making the platform better. And I love 0 to 1 because it is unlike anything you've read before. Like people teach, you know, entrepreneurship. They teach innovation. They talk about radical innovation, incremental innovation, all this sort of stuff. But when you read this book, it's really about how to think. He talks about, you know, power laws and draws from different areas in life of how to think differently and apply that to innovation. And it is just a cracking, amazing book.
Yeah. Spot on, man. Totally agree. Right. Number 6.
Right.
What do you got for it?
Right. Yes, Drill Sergeant. All right. This is one I read recently, last year. That changed my life. So How to Stop Worrying and Start Living by Dale Carnegie. So this guy has written quite a few books. Most people would have read How to Win Friends and Influence People. And this is for me because I've got a very analytical brain. I think a lot, quite a few times to the point of worry where I used to get sick and I had stomach problems and a whole bunch of shit. Couldn't sleep properly. And this book is cracking. So literally chapter by chapter, he gets you to implement something and think about something in a different way. And just look at this book, Ben. There's about 10,000 bookmarks in there. I've highlighted the hell out of it. And one of the key things he gets you to do is create a worry plan. He's like, right, what are you worrying about right now? Like the worry plan is, what are you worrying about? What's the worst case scenario? Can you accept the worst case scenario? Great. How do you make it better? And he gets you to go through in a very specific way and document that. So I'm worrying about a thing. This is what I'm worrying about. And if that worry comes to fruition, right, what's going to happen? Okay, this is going to happen. Can you accept that? 9 times out of 10, well, pretty much 10 out of 10 in my case, I'm like, yeah, that's okay. Like if that happens, that's fine. Worst case scenario. Now I've accepted it. What are you worried about? Right, what can we do to make sure that doesn't happen or to mitigate it or to reduce it?
Don't we do that so much? I do that all the time. You start thinking about a concern and then you just completely overcook what could actually happen to the point which is completely ridiculous, and you stress about something that's never going to happen. And then even if it does happen, it doesn't matter.
That's because us humans, like our survival and replication machines, we're trained to look at threats and danger. And back in the day, this would have been animals or whatever, and they're big threats. Nowadays, we've got these little threats that we make big threats because our lives are relatively safe and secure. And this book was just absolutely cracking. And the way he wrote it was, there was no, he was basically something equivalent to a TAFE, and people would rock up and it'd be like salespeople, business people, whatever. And he would have to teach them how to stop worrying and start living. And there was no book, there was no manual. So he ended up writing one. But the key was he had to deliver value each lesson because they paid by the lesson each week. So they give him like $10 each week. If they didn't like it and it wasn't good and it didn't help them, they wouldn't show up next week. So he had to make it cracking. And even just in the first few pages, listen to this, the load of tomorrow added to that of yesterday, carried today, makes the strongest falter. Shut off the future as tightly as the past. The future is today. There is no tomorrow. And he just goes on about, oh, mate, the day of man's salvation is now. Waste of energy, mental distress, nervous worries. Nervous worries dog the steps of a man who is anxious about the future. Shut close, then great fore and aft bulkheads. Some of it's a bit like wanky language. And prepare to cultivate the habit of a life living in day-tight compartments. And he's saying the best possible way to prepare for tomorrow is to concentrate with all your intelligence, all your enthusiasm on doing today's work superbly today. The only possible way you can prepare for the future. And the final line, just on this, like one of the opening pages, today's bread is the only kind of bread you can possibly eat. And he just reframes you so well into thinking about the now, but you know, we go to work, there's these people, there's long-term relationships, long-term projects. My money's invested for the long term. You start thinking 10 years ahead, where am I going to be? Mate, you just get overwhelmed, coupled with the mental load of just the day-to-day. This really helps reframe you, man.
I love it, man. It's one thing that books do, man. They just give you a different perspective, and like, there's little like tidbits. I like to write down, like you put the sticky notes in. I keep a notes section now, like my favorite books. I write down pieces because I forget. Yeah, it feels like I just don't want to like blindly just read a book and then just completely forget about it. Like I want to write down so I can go back and read those bits that I put out of it.
Yeah, so I highlight my books and put tabs in them, and the really cracking stuff I'll write in some electronic way so I can go back and look at the quotes. Or if I'm feeling down or something like that, I could just, you know, go like get me right in the right mind frame relatively quickly.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay, next book for me, and my last book before Bergs finishes it off, is The Happiest Man on Earth, The Beautiful Life of an Auschwitz Survivor. Auschwitz. By Eddie Jacku. One of the craziest books I've read in terms of like the story and how it really captivated me. I read this in a weekend when I was in Thailand. I've never read that fast. It just encapsulated me. And it was around, Eddie Jacku's story of his survival. He lived through the Nazi regime and was held captive at I'm going to keep stuff out this name.
A concentration camp, Auschwitz.
Yeah. Auschwitz. You just really endured the trauma and loss that he had through those years, and yet he still came out alone, the happiest man on earth. And ultimately, really, it's just a book that shows you how to have faith in humanity and honor and celebrate life. And a couple of biggest things I took away was like he had no like hope. Like he was just in a concentration camp. Like he was just fucked. Like what he had to go through was just insane. And yet, you know, he kept finding, you know, hope, you know, amongst the years and years and tens of years that he spent in this concentration camp. And, you know, his willingness and ability to let go after all that happened allowed him to set free and live a life of happiness. He says in the book, you know, one of his best experiences was when his first child was born, his son. He experiences profound healing that seems to liberate him from the pain and sadness. He says, when I held my eldest son, Michael, in his arms for the first time, it was a miracle. In that one moment, his heart was healed and his happiness returned in abundance. From that day on, he realized he was the luckiest man on earth. You know, and the other one here just around like happiness is a choice. He said, I promised when I came out of the darkest hours of my life that I would be happy for the rest of my life and smile. Because if you smile, the world smiles with you. Life is not always happiness. Sometimes there are many hard days, but you must remember that you are lucky to be alive. We are all lucky in this way. Every breath is a gift. Life is beautiful if you let it be. Happiness is in your hands. I'm like, fucking
unbelievable, mate. So you recommended this book to me, and so did my brother Chris. None of you guys really read books, and you're like, holy shit. You could read it in an afternoon. It's amazing. His story is incredible. And he just opens with, you know, he talks a little bit about his story. He's like, and don't worry, I'm the happiest man on earth, and I will teach you how to be happy too, friend. And I was like, oh, what a lad.
This guy spent like years and years and years and years in a concentration camp getting tortured and belted and like, you know, malnourished and like all these sorts of things, freezing cold, like insane.
He was, in the end, he weighed 29 kilos. And he ended up coming to Australia at the end of all of it and lived his life in Australia.
It's just such a hard story to listen to.
Oh, and when you really think about it, the atrocities that actually happened to him, and if you're worried about that, don't be, because he doesn't go into massive detail about it and uses relatively simple language. But just thinking through what he had to go through, and I look at my life and I'm like, nothing in my life is tough. I've got it so sweet. All my problems just went away. It was very, very clarifying.
Intense, man. Right, finish this off, mate.
Right, so I've got 3 philosophy books for you. I recommend everyone buys this. This is Seneca on the Shortness of Life. And if you don't want to buy it, you can be cheeky and get the PDF. It's only 18 pages. And honestly, this book is cracking. It just helped. So, you know, philosopher and Stoic philosophy, first page, mate. It is not that we have a short space of time, but that we waste much of it. The life we receive is not short, but we make it so. And it's like everything he says is like, oh my God, you live as if you were destined to live forever. No thought of your frailty enters your head. You squander time as if you drew from a full and abundant supply, though all the while that day which you bestow on some person or thing is perhaps your last. And what guarantee do you have that your life will last longer? Are you not ashamed to reserve for yourself only the remnant of life and set apart for wisdom only that which cannot be devoted to any business? And it's like, oh my God, this guy, every time he's like, there is nothing the busy man is less busy with than living. There is nothing harder to learn. And he talks about how, imagine if someone came to your house, Ben, and they wanted to take your, I don't know, your stereo, your car, your money, whatever. What would you do? You'd fight them. You'd bash them. You wouldn't just roll over. Yet if someone comes to you and says, Ben, can I have some of your time? Can I have a coffee? Can we just have a meeting? You say, okay, no worries. And you are giving up your most precious resource. Your time is worth way more than your money. And you give it up so freely, you don't defend it like you would your possessions.
That hits home, doesn't it? You're so right. We just do it.
Yeah.
But that's one thing you can never get back is time.
That's exactly it, mate. Oh, so that is a cracking book. It's 18 pages. Buy it, read it, protect your goddamn time. All right.
Brilliant.
Next philosophy book, the Almanac of Naval, Ravikant. Now, Ben, you've read this one as well.
Read this.
So this is by a lad, Eric Jorgensen. He's an absolute lad. Shout out to Shiny. He's a member over there as well. What he did was he got all of Naval's kind of tweets and podcasts. This is Naval Ravikant. Listen to his podcast with Tim Ferriss and Joe Rogan. Talks about happiness, life, philosophy, money. He's an angel investor. He's made a lot of money, but he's also very philosophical, has a great outlook on life. And the two things, like this book is just filled with amazing stuff. I think one is how to get rich without getting lucky. There's a rich section. There's a health and a wealth section. And just his outlook on that is great. Two things I took away from this book, 2 Naval quotes. Desire is a contract you make with yourself to be unhappy until you get what you want. And that was amazing to fit in with the time that Seneca talks about. So if I desire a Ferrari, let's say that's $400,000, what do I have to do to get that $400,000? How much do I have to work? How stressed will I be? How much of my life do I have to give up? And once I work out that equation, is it worth giving up that amount of my life to work to then get that Ferrari? So every decision I make, how much time am I giving up to fulfill that desire? Because desire just breeds more desire. There's another line of desiring, get hedonistic adaptation. You want the next thing. You want to keep up with the Joneses. So that was life-changing for me. And the other life-changing thing from this book was happiness is a choice you make and a skill you develop, which fits in with Eddie Jacku as well, the book we just talked about.
Yeah.
So I always thought something's wrong if I'm not happy. Happy is the default state. You know, you think about it in weird ways, but if you think about it as happiness is a choice, I can just go today, I'm going to be happy. And then you work on your happiness every day. You do the things that make you happy. Ben, you wrote out your vision statement recently, and then you wrote out your anti-vision as well. These things don't make me happy. Don't do them. You know, if I look after my body, if I work with the people I want, I work on the things I want. If I get some sunshine, like you can actively work on your happiness. Revelationary, highly recommend.
Yeah, great book.
Final book, mate. Philosophy book, cracking book, one of the greats, Marcus Aurelius Meditations. This is phenomenal. So this guy was like, you know, the emperor. He ruled the world basically. And he faced common problems that we now face. And he wrote down, these were just his meditations. He wrote down all this stuff just in his little journal, didn't expect anyone to find them. And then people found them and they wrote this book. Like, this wasn't supposed to go out to the world. And it's gone through a few translations. I've got the Penguin Classics edition, and in the back, it has these numbers down the side, right? And you can look at in the back what he was talking about, because it's been translated through multiple languages, and it was kind of like, some of the translations aren't that great, but this book doesn't dumb it down, and it'll tell you what he was talking about and what they think it was and how they relate it back. Listen to this, mate. This is a book where you read 2 pages and you just got to put it down and think for an hour. Yeah. So look at this. Remember how long you have been putting this off. How many times you have been given a period of grace by the gods and not used it. If you do not use it to clear away your clouds, it will be gone, and you will be gone, and the opportunity will not return. And it just fits in with, I'll do it tomorrow, or I can go to the beach with my family next week. And you just keep putting it off. And one day you won't be able to go to the beach. You'll be too old. Your leg won't work. That you might not be with that person. Or it might be, the end of your life and you pass away. You don't know when that is coming. And just to be able to reflect on your life and just common problems in this way is just so clarifying. I highly recommend Meditations, Marcus Aurelius. 10 books, dude.
What a collection of books. You've added a few to my list, that's for sure. I've literally just ordered the 4-Hour Work Week. It's been on my list for a little while, but hearing you talk about it, I'm like, fuck.
You need to, and go through those questions. It'll change your life. I've read your books, apart from The Way of the Peaceful Warrior. That's on my list. I'm going to get that, mate.
You'll love this book, man. It's a cracker.
Amazing. So to everyone out there, I hope you've got some value out of that. You understand why we recommend these books, how they've changed our lives. And these aren't books where, you kind of read one page and you get something, then there's something at the end. No, these are cracking all the way through, where you get more and more value the more you read.
Yeah, spot on. Thank you, everyone, for listening. A little bit of a different one today. We hope you liked that, Bergs. This was your idea. This is a great episode. I enjoyed this one. So
loved it a lot, mate.
We'd love for you to share this around, team. If you've got any friends or family, colleagues, next door neighbours that you think would find this useful, or there's a book in here that you have read and someone else needs to read it, please send them this episode. It's how we grow the podcast. We do this each and every week, absolutely free for you and your ears, to help you grow in business and personal growth and your career. Thank you, everyone. We'll be back next episode. Thank you, Bergs.
Thanks, Ben. Thanks, champions, for listening.